15 years ago, my best friends Laura and Tom lived with their 5 children in a modest, worn-down 4-bedroom house. The rent was a frozen $400 a week, a bargain in a city that had been climbing in price every year. The house, however, was a ruin, cracked walls, peeling wallpaper, and a kitchen that seemed to exist solely to remind visitors of decay. The drains smelled like rot, and the pipes groaned as if in protest every time water ran. Yet, despite the home's shortcomings, there was warmth. The laughter of their children echoed down the halls. Their life was full, chaotic, and real. They survived on little, but they thrived on love and resilience. The landlord, Mrs. Margaret Langley, was elderly but generous. She had promised, 5 years ago, that if Laura and Tom saved enough for a mortgage, they could buy the house at the original rent price. This wasn't idle talk. She had helped others in the past, and they trusted her implicitly. For 5 long years, they scrimped, counting every cent. Their lives became an exercise in meticulous planning. Grocery lists were precise, electricity usage was monitored, and luxuries were non-existent. Every meal was measured, every purchase debated. Their dream was tangible, and they were close. And then, 2 days after announcing they were ready, Mrs. Langley died unexpectedly. Margaret's 4 children, each wealthy in their own right, swooped in. They inherited her estate, multiple properties, businesses, and investments. They assured Laura and Tom that the sale would proceed but demanded patience as probate processed. Weeks stretched into months, and months into years. When probate concluded, the Holloways raised the price by $80,000 and scheduled an open market sale. They had no financial need for the extra money. It was pure, calculated greed. And they did it knowing the family could not raise the sum in time. It was more than a betrayal, it was a declaration of power. I remember the moment I first realized the depth of their cruelty. I sat with Laura, listening to her recount the Holloways' threats, promises, and manipulations. My blood boiled. These people had decided, in their opulent lives, to ruin a struggling family for less than $20,000 each. Revenge, I decided, had to be precise, strategic, and theatrical. It could not be impulsive, it needed to be an art form. The first step was the house. Furniture was rearranged to make the rooms feel cramped. Borrowed trinkets cluttered surfaces. Motorcycle posters adorned walls. It wasn't chaos, it was controlled discomfort, designed to unsettle potential buyers without damaging property or reputation. Then came the olfactory assault. A cabbage boiled on the stove for hours, ammonia was sprayed lightly near doors, and dozens of rotten eggs were poured down the drains. The smell wasn't overpowering, but it was unmistakably unpleasant. Even the garden became a weapon. A moldy old couch, obtained with a neighbor's permission, was dumped across the street. Neighbors unknowingly, or perhaps knowingly, added to the chaos with their yards, barking dogs, and random yard decorations. The neighborhood became an extension of the plan. Friends with loud cars circled the block, creating the illusion of traffic. Barbecues, motorcycles, and outdoor parties ensured constant noise and movement. It wasn't random, it was calculated theater, a play in which chaos was the protagonist. Potential buyers who entered the property felt a sensory overload, cluttered rooms, odd smells, and the perception of neighborhood disorder. The Holloways assumed control. They assumed power. They were wrong. On the day of the open house, our preparations were in full swing. Friends arrived early, taking their positions strategically. Noise, chaos, and mild inconvenience combined to create a subtly hostile environment. Potential buyers trickled in, their expressions shifting from curiosity to discomfort. One brave man lingered, inquiring about the neighborhood. He was told about weekly barbecues, blocked drains, and minor nuisances. He left without an offer. Finally, Laura and Tom made their move, submitting their offer slightly above their original plan but far below the Holloways' inflated price. Anti-gazumping laws ensured the Holloways could not accept a higher bid. The family won. The Holloways' faces when the deal closed were unforgettable: shock, disbelief, and rage. Every act of cruelty, every inflated demand, had been undone by patience, strategy, and cunning. Their reputation in the community suffered subtly but surely. Gossip spread. Agents whispered. Their opulent image became shadowed by stories of entitlement and failure. Lara and Tom finally moved in fully. The house transformed from chaos to warmth. The children's laughter filled every room. Tulips bloomed in the garden. Justice, patient and deliberate, had been served. Every rotten egg, every motorcycle lap, every barbecue, and chaotic distraction had been worth it. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, a tenant named Jane had caused financial devastation. She stopped paying rent 7 months into her lease, damaged the property, and fled the country. Jane thought she could escape consequences. She was wrong. I purchased her domain name, johnesmith.com, and built a website documenting her misdeeds: unpaid rent, property damage, eviction notices, and photos of her negligence. Carefully, factually, legally. SEO optimization ensured the website dominated search results. Employers, landlords, and acquaintances saw Jane for what she was: deceitful and irresponsible. 3 years later, the site still stood. Jane's digital footprint ensured her actions could never be hidden. In the suburbs, neighbors Joey and Linda invited us to lavish dinners, hoping to offload expenses. They ordered extravagantly and expected us to pay half. Eventually, I ensured the check was separated. Their faces turned red with fury as their ploy failed. Later, we faked delays and missed dinners entirely, leaving them to absorb the full cost of their opulence alone. At a high school reunion, a former bully, Tom, approached John, a friend who had achieved extraordinary success. Tom attempted to leverage his perceived status, speaking as if he were still in control. John's calm, polite dismissal, asking Tom to verify his presence against a guest list, left Tom embarrassed in front of classmates. It was quiet, precise revenge. Revenge is not always loud or violent. It is strategy, patience, and precision. It requires observation, planning, and timing. A struggling family won their home against wealthy schemers. A deceitful tenant's reputation was destroyed online. Neighbors attempting manipulation learned their lesson. A former bully faced humiliation in a carefully orchestrated public setting. When executed correctly, revenge is darkly triumphant, deeply satisfying, and permanent. Weeks passed after Lara and Tom officially secured their home. The Holloways, still smarting from their public defeat, tried to interfere subtly. They hired agents to harass the couple with demands about minor maintenance and repairs. Letters were sent, every email tinged with threats and entitlement. I watched as Lara and Tom handled it with calm defiance. Every response was polite, precise, and legally sound. No confrontation, no rage, just unassailable fact and procedure. The Holloways realized, too late, that their wealth and arrogance could not override law and preparation. Then came the day of the annual city property inspection, a chance to test the limits of their harassment. The Holloways expected faults to be cited, hoping Lara and Tom might slip. But months of careful planning, repair, and neighborhood diplomacy ensured the inspector found nothing. The humiliation was complete. The Holloways' grand plans to profit from greed crumbled. Every letter, threat, and inflated price tag became proof of their own incompetence. The house itself became a tool of revenge, long after the initial sale. On the 1-year anniversary of the open house, I orchestrated a symbolic reminder. Friends gathered, quietly moving furniture, adding subtle annoyances in plain sight, and leaving clues that the Holloways' intended buyers would never have survived. A neighbor reported a mysterious smell from the drains, exactly the ammonia and cabbage recipe we had perfected years earlier. Word spread online about the quirky, unpredictable property, and agents began warning clients to think twice. Every time the Holloways tried to sell a nearby property, Laura and Tom's former home cast a shadow. Its reputation had become legendary, a fortress of patience, planning, and quiet vengeance. Meanwhile, Jane's story in Manhattan escalated. Her once gleaming reputation collapsed under the weight of the website detailing her deceit. Potential employers Googled her, landlords refused her applications. Social connections she had relied on began distancing themselves. Emails from former colleagues revealed whispers of her scandal. Bridge clubs refused entry. Professional organizations asked for clarification. Even casual acquaintances found the website and forwarded it to her employers. Every day, Jane experienced the cumulative weight of her choices. 3 years later, the cost to her exceeded 20 times what she had saved in unpaid rent. She had gambled on ignorance and lost. The website remained online, a permanent testament to meticulous justice. Joey and Linda never learned subtlety. They tried again, inviting us to yet another extravagant dinner. I smiled quietly, knowing exactly how it would end. The restaurant was crowded. Orders were taken, plates arrived. Drinks poured. The moment the check arrived, I calmly insisted on split bills, down to the last cent. Joey's face contorted in disbelief as he realized he would finally pay for his own extravagance. No excuses, no guilt trips. The lesson was clear: exploitation would no longer be tolerated. Tom, the high school bully, had attempted subtle social manipulation. He approached John at the reunion, attempting to leverage perceived status for profit and attention. John's response was a quiet, calculated humiliation. Asking for guest list verification forced Tom to confront the fact that the world had moved on. He no longer mattered. Even when Tom tried to redeem himself through a classmate, John remained politely indifferent. The subtle, quiet revenge was devastating. A lifetime of bullying and arrogance was undone with calm civility. Over time, a clear pattern emerged. True revenge is patient. It requires waiting until the timing is perfect. Strategic. Chaos must appear organic, untraceable, and inevitable. Satisfying. The payoff should be deep and permanent, leaving a lasting impression. The victories of Laura and Tom, the digital exposure of Jane, and the reunion humiliation of Tom all adhered to this principle. The Holloways, still bitter, decided to host a charity gala, hoping to restore their social image. I obtained the guest list and quietly ensured that Laura and Tom would attend. Not visibly, but strategically. During the gala, subtle reminders of their past greed circulated. Former agents, neighbors, and colleagues recounted the open house debacle. Everyone knew the story. Every raised eyebrow, every whispered conversation, chipped away at their carefully curated image. By the end of the evening, the Holloways had learned a painful truth: reputation, once tarnished, cannot easily be repaired. Months turned into years. Laura and Tom thrived in their home. The children grew up in safety and warmth, a testament to patience and justice. Jane's digital record ensured she could never harm another landlord without consequence. Joey and Linda never attempted another dinner scam. Their inflated sense of entitlement was permanently deflated. Tom, the former bully, faded from relevance, forced to live with the quiet knowledge that the world had changed while he had remained stagnant. Every action taken had been deliberate, measured, and precise. Every humiliation, every setback for the antagonists, was carefully orchestrated. Revenge, as I have learned through these stories, is not about anger or impulsive retaliation. It is meticulous. Every move must be calculated. Permanent. The lesson must endure beyond the immediate moment. Satisfying, both emotionally and psychologically, it must resonate. When wealth, status, and arrogance attempt to override justice, it is possible to strike back, not with brute force, but with strategy, patience, and cunning. For Laura and Tom, justice was sweet, slow, and unassailable. For Jane, it was digital, permanent, and unescapable. For the neighborhood and reunion stories, it was subtle yet deeply humiliating. The common thread: those who exploit others, underestimate patience, and act from greed rather than principle, inevitably pay the price. And when the time comes, the reward is darkly triumphant. Here at Tinty Tales, every story is brewed slow and served warm, made for listeners who savor meaning in every word. So please, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. This is Tinty Tales, pour a cup, and I'll pour a story.